set for next week's poster.
Welcome to our council meeting, February 25th, 2019. I want to welcome everyone in the chamber gallery as usual. We have media here, and I also want to make a point of noting that there are two recording devices that are running, and they find their way onto various social media. So welcome everyone, and we'll call the meeting to order. Linda, would you do a roll call?
Ransom.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Whitten. Here. Grimstead.
Here. Thank you. So on the agenda, Linda had asked to add administrative guidelines again in an email.
It's a special agenda because I haven't made the time, so we can't add anything until the 11th.
Okay. Well, luckily the three things that I had to wait until last month, so that's fine. Okay, so is there a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Number 3 is titled Mayor Misconduct Investigation. We also have a public input here from one of our citizens, Mary Shedd. She isn't able to be here, but I think it should be read, and I'd like to ask the secretary to read it. Could you do that?
Yeah.
I've got one in the
I'm sending this email to comment about two issues of concern to me, and I'm emailing because I'm out of town tonight and cannot attend in person. I just sent my agenda for tonight, and since my main comment will be on that third issue, the third item, I'm writing and hope you are ready to consider my request prior to having a discussion. First, I believe it's all right wrong and being defamatory to label the third agenda item mayor misconduct. Can't tell if you're choosing to prejudiciously act as a judge or an jury, or if it's innocent and careful mistake in a choice of words. If an investigation determines there is misconduct that can be held before you accept the agenda, I request that you change it to either complaint against the mayor or investigation of a complaint against the mayor and mayor. The topic of Aldenburg's campaign and columns on subsequent decision to pursue an investigation should be revisited, and this is why. I'm so disappointed and concerned with the last meeting's reply motion to investigate the mayor for comments he made prior to being sworn into office. And what frustrates me about council action is that he voted without having a clearly articulated motion. And I know that the videos and draft minutes are still not 2 weeks later on the website, so even though I am still not sure what the motion was. Are you sticking to just the complaint letter from Altenburg, and if so, why, since the city lawyer present indicated that he knew no basis for examining the complaint because Grimstead was not yet in office? Councilors Whitten and Anderson, I respectfully request for you to explain your rationale. Frankly, it is hard for me not to feel suspicious of a less defined investigation. Based on the hearing, Council Whitten paid them, in my opinion, without openness, you, Grimstead, and us citizens suggest other issues, things that spider out from the letter of complaint. So what are those? Grimstead and us tower citizens are due an open complaint, not a fishing expedition. I request that you revisit the motion, recall it, and if there are still members who want to propose it with clarity that includes boundaries, who should do the investigation, now that we know that the league does not conduct such investigations, and what role council will receive clerk we have in directing the investigation. If there are other issues or complaints, they must be presented publicly and to the mayor. Finally, how about hunting on all of it together and try investigating it in an old-fashioned way by having the parties sit down together with a mediator if necessary and work it out. If private citizen Grimstead's alleged comments about dismissing Altenburg in his opinion and perhaps private citizens' comments that we earlier on Grimstead ought to be sounded in avoiding of either or a real or exaggerated private comment. This is good place for the two of them to start a conversation. And any of the other we that Altenburg references want to join into, they should. Along this line, I request that each councilor and clerk confirm their goal of either working with the chosen mayor for the good of town or running out of town, which is that these two working all together can deliver our town and fulfilling on director's choice for our mayor's leadership. Lastly, the public, during public comment, there are specific requests with what I believe is very sound rationale to consider that also needs not be recorded due to the risk of the city of participation in defamation. I don't know what the full pros and cons may be, but because of course at this meeting the topic was not on the agenda, and I see no reason on this agenda, please be responsible to public comments. This is information that needs discussion and discussion by the full council. This includes your accountability to those of us who elected you to serve on your behalf. Thank you for considering my comments. They are respectfully submitted in most electors of power. Thank you for stepping up to serve in what I'm sure is a very challenging job.
Thank you, Linda. I should have actually asked to move the public input up ahead of the accept agenda, but she has a request there to change the title of that of number 3, Mayor Misconduct Investigation, which it is not yet. And then secondly, we'll come back to this at our next council meeting, but the issue she brings up about videotaping was one of the issues that I had listed under my administrative guidelines that I wanted to add to the agenda. I sent you that email last week.
Yeah, you should need to be a little bit more specific though for the agenda. I don't think that's clear enough. The videotaping would be, but not.
But we'll have a chance to look at.
Is this a special meeting?
This is, yeah.
Okay, and I would just say in the future that this is just procedural thing.
It's,
Instead of regular meeting, put special meeting up there because they know
yeah.
you can't add things for the special
Right.
meeting so people know that.
It's a regular meeting on a special time, so it becomes special by law.
Linda, do we have an agenda setting policy for our council?
No,
Okay.
I don't believe.
That was something that was suggested at the League of Minnesota Cities training, so
Okay.
maybe something we could look to in the future. An agenda setting policy.
Oh, yeah.
Just to have a standard.
That would actually be a good one.
I think there is something in the policy book, correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, but has to do with if the mayor wants to have something added to the agenda, he may request it, otherwise for council members.
That's for a special meeting, to hold a special meeting, not to have something on the agenda.
So what does it take to add something to the agenda? Just one of us? Phone call, email, so it's more
Yeah,
specific.
whatever, yeah.
So that probably answers your questions. Okay.
But I think
But
she would like to
I'd
have
like
something in writing.
just to have a
For
solid.
future council members, with
Yeah,
new
so-
person
Do
coming
you
in.
remember any city that was there that said we had one?
No, but I could reach out to the league and.
Well, I can find out, I'll put it out, I just won't make it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think that's a great idea.
And then let people come in, yeah.
There's a
Not spending
procedure.
so much time looking for feedback.
Yep.
All for that.
Okay, yeah, we'll come back to public input again in its regular order. So we're at number 3 now, which is titled Mayor Misconduct Investigation. Kevin, is that something that you're...
At the last meeting, you tasked me to contact Pamela Whitmore, which I did. She does not do these types of investigations, unfortunately. Her answer was that any time she took a look at the complaint, and any time that they have a sense that it could possibly end up in litigation, they choose not to because they are also then an insurance agent that will be representing, so they have conflicts. So she did provide a handout that she does do some services on HR, which will come over to a presentation, but it's not specifically about a particular issue. It's just more about cities and HR issues. And then she also gave me a list of, all this is in your packet, a list of potential investigators that we do what we were asking for. So I could not go any farther with the request after that. I guess I would need some direction. If you wanted to use one of these people or what.
Well, at the last meeting, trying not to say too much because I didn't know how much of this should have been in a closed meeting or not closed meeting. It was kind of put on the spot by the city attorney to say, just say what it is. I tried to answer as best as I could the last time around, but it wasn't really on point and concise enough. So I did work on trying to do a better answer for the council that's a little more concise. And hopefully this will help highlight some of the issues. My apologies for not getting it to you earlier, but I was literally working on it today. The last couple of weeks I've been a little busy. Okay, so reasons for outside investigation. There are two main complaints that are currently in process. The first complaint is Steve Altenberg's complaint about comments that were made. So this was related to comments made to Rachel and Brooke by Orland after the election, but before seating, which creates an adverse working relationship between the mayor and the fire chief ambulance director, which is problematic in looking at the city code of conduct and ethics guidelines. Complaint number 2 is actually the grievance that was filed, that was in the meeting before this, and the performance review of Linda Keith and the resulting grievance as breach of contract on the part of Orland. This was prompted solely by Orland, of which none of the other councilors have approved of an investigation to begin with, which is problematic for several reasons, including a proper use of authority issue because Tower is a weak mayor model. And the second part of that is information from that meeting was apparently gotten to the public by some means in violation of the closed meeting. While unknown as to who that was, it lends argument to these issues being resolved independently. So those are the ones that are currently documented ones right now. But there are some ones that have never been cleared up either. And this is kind of what I was alluding to the last time, is that these all kind of stem from a variety of other things that are kind of involved as well. So some of the ones that are not documented yet are Orland has committed city funds without notifying the clerk or the city until after the fact, which as far as I know is against procedure.
Could you speak up, please?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Orland committing city funds without notifying the city or the clerk until after the fact, which is as far as I know against procedure. The first one being the cost of the training session, which was purchased and filed and invoiced to the city without Linda knowing until after the fact. And the second one was calls made to Peterson, which showed up on our billing records. Again, without letting the city know. As far as I know, and again, I could be wrong in this area, but as far as I know, none of us have the authority to solely commit funds from the city without letting the clerk and the city know. So that could be a procedural problematic issue. Number 2, Orland made demands of city staff and councilors as if this was a strong mayor model. The strong mayor model, if you go on the lead guidance, it talks about direct control of city staff and things like that. But that's not correct. Tower is based on the weak mayor model. And so, and despite getting advice to that effect, both by, I know Josh talked to Orland, I know Linda and I sat down with him after he was elected. We tried to get advice on how to make a smooth transition from administration to administration, and for the most part, this has been ignored. It's created an adversarial and hostile work environment, which is against city conduct and ethics. The number 3, Orland's...
Before you go on to number 3, are there specific allegations in number 2? Something that I can respond to?
Well, I mean, I'm sure Linda could give you some examples of things that she's been directed to do that I don't have the authority to tell Linda directly what to do. Neither do any of the other councilors.
No, you have the right to request anything from Linda. We gotta remember, we're the council, and if you need something from Linda, absolutely you can request that.
We can ask for information, we can ask for other things, but it's, to my understanding, under a weak mayor model, this operates more kind of like a school board than as anything else.
Totally wrong.
That's what I read in the lead guidance, so
You can
I'm
ask
going based on that.
Linda for anything, so.
Neither here nor there. Let me get through the rest of this. And number 3 is Orland's conflict of interest regarding the harbor, which has still not been addressed despite Orland's claims. At the last knowledge available, the Harbor Shores office is still listed as Orland's shop, which means that Shores is still paying rent to Orland's business, which is a financial connection and conflict. And even if that information is out of date, because I don't know if it's still current or not, The city conduct and ethics even mentioned that even a perceived conflict is something to still acknowledge and abstain from participating in. So overall, this creates a lot of ethical and procedural concerns that makes it very difficult for the council alone to decide without an expert in city governance that is independent of what is currently going on to weigh in with sound advice on what is proper action. This is the reason that I recommended an outside party to examine the issue in detail and to come back with the city with recommendations so that no one single councilor is solely responsible for investigating or suggesting remediations going forward so that the council can start to move forward. My main concern as a whole of all of these is the mayor's actions are exposing the city to potential liability for continually taking action on its own without the rest of the council, which to my understanding is not how we're supposed to be operating. This is why I also included item number 3 above about the conflict of interest piece. Even though it's not directly related to the 2 main complaints that have been filed already, it's a potential liability that needs a governance expert to weigh in on that is not directly related to the city. It was initially my hope that the city attorney would fill that role, but it's been made clear that the attorney tends to not get involved because of the current divisive nature on the council. The only reason that I've been involved in this is because as a member of the Employee Relations Committee, the initial complaint came to me. I looked into it just enough to confirm the complaint, at which point I tried to bring it to the council. Instead of wanting to bring light to the issue in a closed session where I could debrief the council while protecting any potential private data, I was instead confronted with suspicion and hostile comments for trying to follow procedure as best as I could in the circumstances. At this point, I would still make the same recommendation that I did before, that an independent governance expert look into these issues to write up a set of conclusions and remediations in order for the council to put this to bed and start moving on. I'm not saying one way or another if it's right or wrong. I'm saying these are the things that I've heard and these are the things that have never been cleared up.
I'm gonna ask you only for a copy of that, because I don't want you to get a copy of it right now. So I also want to be able to read it.
So,
Are you looking for a response from me at this time, or?
no, I'm more confused as the whole council. I think everyone would want to solve this and be done. So I'm rather confused personally. And frankly, I don't want to see this on the agenda every month coming up. Because I don't think it's doing the business of the city. I think this is something that we're getting mired and bogged down in. And we're spending 3-hour meetings and over half of it is going to just these 2 things coming up again and again and again and again. I'm tired of going round and round on it. I would rather it be looked into and solved and put to bed than constantly going back and forth at the next meeting, and then the next meeting, and the next meeting. I don't know how anyone else feels about that, but that's kind of where I'm at.
I agree with you. I'd rather not have these things hanging over our heads time after time after time. I disagree that it's taking half of the meeting or whatever was it portion that you said it was. But the issues can be quite easily explained, I think, and answered. So, first of all, there's specific things that I may have directed someone to do rather than us to do. I think that those should be documented so that I can respond to them.
This is the part that worries me, is because then we're just going to go round and round and round again. This is why I keep saying that it needs to be independent, because otherwise it's going to be your side says this, and then this side says that, and then we're going around and around again.
It's council members against council members, and we shouldn't be like that. We need to get over this and do our city work. Yeah.
And I think that's even what the input from Mary Shedd was suggesting, was some sort of mediation or something else to try and solve it. So that's the feedback that we're getting from the public is, let's come to a conclusion, let's get something done.
So, your recommendation is then to choose a workplace investigator to do this investigation?
As long as it's independent from here and they have governance experience that's more than what we have here at the table, that's the best solution I can come up with. Is because until then, It's just our opinions going back and forth.
From all of the different allegations that you brought up, I think that all of them are easily answerable. It's going to be up to the council to decide whether they want to spend money on a workplace investigator to do what might otherwise be resolved very simply with very simple explanations.
I would disagree. I still think it needs to be someone independent, because otherwise it's just going to be one side versus another going back and forth. I mean, we've gone down this road. I mean, how many packets of paper of things have we gone through, and it's only February? So, I mean, I'm still at the same recommendation that I was at months ago, back in January, that in order to actually put this to bed, someone who has no ties to anything going on here and who has more experience than what we have here can definitively say, yes, this is true, yes, this is not true, no, this is correct, so on and so on. And if they can actually go down that list and prove all those things with a pretty fair amount of expertise, then that should settle it, regardless of whichever way it ends up coming out.
Okay. As I said, this is going to be up to the council to vote on whether they want to spend that money or not, or whether they would like to have a written response from me, and also a meeting. It could be a mediated meeting between Linda and I on the issues that she specifically is bringing up before we spend the city's money. I can unequivocally say that the questions that you bring up can all be quite simply answered. The conflict of interest here is none, and there's people in the audience who can speak to that. There's documentation that also clarifies that. So I guess at this point, to not take more time, I would ask for a motion.
I would put forward a motion to have an investigator with a limit, like, I don't know, $500 or not to exceed a certain amount, and we'll go from there.
So is there support?
I'll second that motion. Unfortunately, I feel that's just the way we're gonna have to go with this. I don't wanna have to spend more city money, but I wanna get moving on things, get this behind us.
Is there any further discussion?
Oh, well, I'm not in favor of moving that quickly forward, and I know people hate it. I don't like wasting my time either. My time is valuable to me like anybody else. However, one of the things that I learned at the Minnesota City thing is that, you know what, trying to work it out amongst yourselves at first is much a better way. In fact, it helps us interact in a way that hopefully turns out to be a positive way. I would prefer that the mayor writes out his reasonings to give him a chance to explain his things, and then there should be a mediated discussion between those parties involved in that, see if that works out. That's how I feel it should go, and if that can't happen, then at least you're following a procedure. I feel that's the way to go. And if we can't, then I'm all for moving on to something else. But I think that everyone should be given the chance at least to address the question, the complaint, and then mediated between the parties. Well, kind of spend any money if possible, but in the end, if that doesn't work, that's how I think that's what I would vote for. I'm not going to vote for, I tell you right now, I won't vote for going forward right away, because I think this seems like no one's given a chance to explain their logic behind that, and then get the people. I like Mary said, she has a good letter that we should learn. If we can't agree to mediate and work on this, how are we ever gonna, you know, and is everything gonna go to an investigation every time someone says something that, I could tell people right now about two other people sitting in this room. They chose not to say anything about their actions. Because it just continues that, a very poor, way of dealing with things. So, that's what I have to say. I would be all in favor of the mayor right now, why he did what he did and his reasoning, and then the mediation between the parties involved. That's what I would be in favor of right now.
Any further discussion?
How does mediation work? Who would we,
We'd have to find someone that would be who would be an impartial person, basically what Kevin's talking about, you know, and talking amongst us, because we can't do it here, when is that gonna happen? Because we're just gonna have this animosity all the time. I can feel it, and I didn't come here for that.
What I learned at the League of Minnesota Cities, and perhaps I should let Rachel make this comment too, but is that while they do not do investigations, they do mediation. And Pamela Whitmore is a person who's designated to doing that, and I think that she would be willing to come up and work with us.
So would everyone be okay with an amendment to it, that we tack on a piece of that saying mediation attempt first, and then if not,
to move to investigation? Mediation isn't effective.
that's what I'm hearing. Is anyone fond of it?
I guess I would like to see it just the mediation and not include the investigation at first, because then it's like you're not trying to mediate hard enough and you're working towards going to investigation. I don't like that. I just prefer not that. We should have that discussion again, because if you put it in there, it's too easy to segue from mediation to investigation. And I would definitely want to be able to, after reviewing the mayor's comments and the mediator's comments, make that decision instead of lumping it into one. That's my own.
Further discussion? Then I'll call a question. All in favor of Kevin's suggestion without the friendly amendment, because it wasn't supported, to hire an investigator, please say aye.
Say aye.
Am I allowed to vote?
I don't think you should vote. Again, this is an investigation about you, so I just think you need to...
I'll understand. I was prepared to do that. All those not in favor, say aye.
Nay.
Okay, so then it's a 2-2 tie, and the motion is failed.
I would make a motion though that the mayor writes his comments out and that we look into the League of Minnesota City meeting.
And second that motion.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of Steve's motion to contact the League of Minnesota Cities for mediation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
One of the words I wrote down when I was sitting at the Capitol, accountability, transparency, sympathy, and building relationships, and I hope that we can get that sometime. By the way, that was a really great experience, so I hope you had the same experience.
Okay. Moving on to number 4, I will make a motion that we close the meeting according to the agenda pursuant to statute 13D 3005. Employee misconduct allegation. I must say there again that the agenda has been changed because I had employee evaluation in my request. But make a motion that we close the meeting. Is there a second?
I think you should identify the individual too.
Okay, the individual that we will discuss is Linda Keith, the clerk treasurer. Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're going into closed session. Ask you to remain.
I'm sorry.
Well, there'll be one after this.
Okay, everyone's here. I'm calling the meeting to order again at 7:40 PM on February 25th. We are simply going to summarize by saying that we conducted on the 11th of February a performance appraisal of the city clerk, and that performance appraisal is incomplete. That's a summary. Is there any correspondence?
Public input.
We had public input. Is there any additional public input? Yes.
And before we begin public input, is there, sorry to sound like a broken record, is there a public input policy?
No, I don't think we have an official one.
Yeah, generally, in the past, maybe it's a good thing, and generally, it was up to the mayor to say, hey, you can have 5 minutes,
Sure.
or set the time limit so you, and not to repeat, so that's generally, but you certainly could probably. I think, in my time, we just wanted to be able to make sure the public could speak.
Yep.
If they, not.
And so just
Let's
something.
keep public input on 2 or 3 minutes.
I think Rachel had a little more.
I'm sorry, so I'd like to circle back to that in the future, just to make sure that anyone who comes with public input has a fair and equal chance to share what they want to share. I'd like to explore having a public comment policy that we can post and make available to folks. So if it's okay, then I'll do that. Can you get to you about that?
Yep, I'll see what other clerks have.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, public input.
All right, my name is Eric Skog. I'm a business agent with Teamsters Local 320. I live in Duluth. We're out of Minneapolis. I represent Linda Keith. Today, we sent a letter to the mayor and copied to the council. And I'm not going to read the entire letter. This actually comes from our attorney, Kelly Lemons, out of St. Paul, and Kevin Beck. Dear Mayor Kringstead, please be advised that I represent Teamsters Local 320 pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13.43, Subdivision 6. Personal data may not or may be disseminated to labor organizations to the extent that the responsible authority determines that the dissemination is necessary to implement the provisions of the Public Employees Labor Relations Act of PELRA. The city held a closed meeting on Monday, February 11, 2019, to evaluate the performance of Local 320 member Linda Keith, City Clerk Treasurer. The meeting was closed pursuant to Minnesota Statute Sections 13D.05 Subdivision 3A. And I quote, all closed meetings, except those closed as closed as permitted by the attorney-client privilege, must be electronically recorded at the expense of the public body, unless otherwise provided by law. Recordings must be preserved for at least 3 years after the date of the meeting, and so Statute 13.05 Subdivision 1D. Based on the February 14, 2019 edition of the Timber Jay, it appears that private personal data regarding Ms. Keith has been distributed to the public. Please immediately refrain from distributing private personal data to the public. If private personal data continues to be distributed to the public, I will take the position that such distribution is a willful violation constituting a criminal misdemeanor offense pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13.098, and will seek damages from the city up to $15,000 pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13.08 Subdivision 1. And it goes down and it cites some laws. The closed meeting we had 2 weeks ago today, we sat at that very table for over, I think, close to an hour. Well, many of you sat outside. There's a packet that was handed to each and every one of us, including the legal counsel of the city. 2 council members turned in their packets. Now I have 6 packets out there. Myself, the mayor, 2 council people, Linda, myself, and your general counsel. Somehow, someway, the article that was printed in the Timber Jay just happened to be, once again, almost verbatim, if not verbatim, to what was in the information that was passed out, that the mayor just emphatically said has to stay in this room. I don't know why we have a leak in the chambers, in closed chambers, but you guys have put on notice, among other things. So I very tread lightly. Mr. Mayor, I warned you beforehand. Just be careful. You know what? You're being a bull in a china shop right now. So I believe you guys all received copies. If you need more copies, I'll be more than happy to give them to you. Thank you.
Other public input? Okay.
I run a different issue for you. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Dave Rose, the one that's working on Tower RV Park. I know you guys got a lot of stuff going and a lot of big stuff that's more important to me, but the only thing I'd like to remind everybody is I'm going as hard as I can, and I'd like for the planning and zoning and the city council not to forget that we still have to maintain and do business. You know, I mean, well, I guess what I'm saying is please don't forget about us guys trying to get something accomplished. Last Friday, brought in Benchmark Engineering. I had a request for a new survey. They started doing the survey and the land layouts and the elevations and the stormwater plan out there. You go out there tomorrow, you'll see snowshoe tracks all over the property where I'm moving ahead, and that's the only thing I have to say is it'll be coming up to planning and zoning and the city council, just not only for me but for other people. You guys just remember that there's some people out there, it's really important, and they had a good day working, I guess. Thanks, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, and there's no correspondence. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just quickly, I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but when things are being read, and people were talking up here at the council, it's very, very hard to hear. I don't know if it's acoustics or what. And I don't know what this is going to cost for this mediator. But it would be nice if you could sell that yourself and put some money in the microphone. It really would. I'm serious, I'm not making a joke, because it was very, very hard to hear. In fact, I couldn't hear that letter at all, and then I had to ask someone to speak up, so that's all.
Thank you. We'll keep it in mind.
Is there some follow-up for his concern? We had talked about getting some AV equipment.
Well, we had talked about getting AV equipment to have more quality video of the meetings, but we have not talked about microphones. Do we have any microphones? I totally understand, because I used to sit back where you are sitting, and I had difficulty hearing as well. I thought that we were projecting more than what the previous council did. Perhaps not, so I apologize for that. Could we investigate the cost of having either a uniform microphone or several microphones up here that would project our voices? Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay. Point well taken. I've set up where you're sitting. Any other public input? Bill?
Yeah, one of the questions, I actually want to direct this at Kevin. What's the policy on the spending of the mayor without authorization of the council?
So my understanding is that in general, most councilors don't have an authority to spend funds on their own. That typically when a councilor goes to spend funds that hasn't gone through the city yet, usually they're responsible for those charges. That's my understanding of it.
Well, I remember a few years ago that the person that was in the mayor's position spent $2,500,
and his limit was $1,000 to spend without authorization of anybody on the council.
I'm not sure what event you're talking about.
Well, it was long before you decided to come to power, so. But I'm just quoting that if there isn't a spending policy, there should be one.
There is a purchasing policy. We have one that's been in effect since January 10th, 2000.
2,000.
Can you say what that is, or is it?
Sure, it does not authorize the mayor any spending power. It authorizes the clerk and the mayor up to 1,000. And then after 1,000, it requires the clerk, the mayor, and the councilor, or the clerk, the acting mayor, and councilor. At least 3 people. And then on both of those over 1,000, it says that 2 quotes shall be requested.
Wasn't there a line item for the mayor's budget, like $500 or something? No. In one of the meetings, I recall that being put out. Okay, we'll investigate that. Thank you, Sheldon. Is there any other public input? Okay, and there's no correspondence, we'll go to unfinished business. There's no unfinished business.
One of correspondence from Louis Johnson,
That was just FYI, it doesn't require any council action. She had just asked for it from that, so, and it's not something you need to respond.
Sorry, I asked about that at the beginning of the meeting. I wasn't here either. Sorry. Okay, so we'll move to new business, 8.1, higher maintenance butcher.
Yes, your interview committee kind of met this very disjointedly, but we were able to go through the process. We did receive 4 candidates, and the recommendation of the committee is to Benjamin Belcher.
How do you spell the last name?
BLCHFF.
Under 8.2.
Well, yeah, they have that in the package.
Yeah, I didn't realize. Okay, so he is hired,
We were having.
We need to approve them.
okay. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the hiring of Benjamin Belcher. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, passed. The ambulance rig subsidy change?
Yeah, so there, you'll see in your packet, there's typed up a new 3-year contract. This would take effect in 2020. So we met again as the ambulance commission on February 4th, I believe it was. And each township had a chance to go back or each representative from the commission went back to the township, their boards, and discuss what we had discussed in that meeting, and what was agreed upon unanimously by the commission was the terms of the contract that we see. We eliminated training expenses out of the contract because there's never been any money for training, and we do have money for training budgeted in the ambulance every year. So, and the change as listed is it will be a 25% incremental increase over the next 3 years of that 2020 contract. So it is currently at $15 per person. It would, in 2020, would be $18.75, in 2021, $23.45, and in 2022 would be $29.30. And you can see the exhibits that are attached that shows what that, what those changes would mean for the rig subsidy. Basically, everybody understood where the subsidy really should have been at this point. It just was not incrementally increased over the last 30 years like it should have been. So the seemingly large sticker shot from that increase is being softened by this incremental increase over the next 3 years. And then we will continue to, the commission will continue to assess every year how that's going, and then have a full assessment at the end of that 3-year contract, or towards the end of that 3-year contract like we did this time, where they can see where everything actually financially is in that subsidy, and do any changes need to be made, have things changed on the service where maybe you don't need as much money or need to increase it, or likely you probably will, but, so this is what the commission agreed to, and so we are asking for the council to approve that contract so that it can be sent out to everybody when it's appropriate.
And you see one type, I'm assuming it's a typo here, number 8, first sentence, it says, it lays out the rates, and it says for 2021, but then it doesn't say 2022 after.
Yeah, it should say 2022.
That's, I'm
For
assuming,
the 2930, because it's a 3-year contract.
I'm assuming it's just a typo.
Yeah, it should say 2022 right there.
Correct that.
The other change is that, so after the year was over, and after that meeting, something that, some of the commission members and just the townships and boards, members of boards and stuff had asked about too, was the transports. And so looking at the financials of the ambulance for 2018, we believe that we can afford to then, whatever that rate is per person that everybody, the city and the townships are contributing, at the end of the year, say if there was 100 transfers, you would contribute that same per person amount for each one of those transfers. So if it's, in 2020, the rate is 1875 was it? Yeah, 1875, then if you did 100 transfers in 2020, the auditors would then take 1875 times 100 and move that amount from the ambulance fund into the rig subsidy, so that that will also then help contribute and grow that subsidy.
Is that the end of your report?
That's basically it.
So I'll entertain a motion to accept.
So moved with the one typo fix.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Steve again, fire department roster change.
So Josh would like to take a break from being the training officer, and that's that.
Is that Josh Carlson?
Josh Carlson, yes. Oh, was that first? Sorry.
It's all the same.
Hang on. It's on the same page?
Yeah.
Sorry. All 3 of them are on the same page. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry.
Moving on.
So, and Randy Johnson, after 29 years as of March 1st, has given notice for his retirement. So we thank him for that service. And then kind of moving, I guess, on to E.Point Portman. The former training officer, Jesse, has agreed to swap out with Josh, and so he can take a break.
Josh will stay on the department.
Oh, yes, he's not retiring, he just, the positions get tiring after a while, they're kind of a pain and stuff, and it's nice to swap them out.
Yes, you understand.
Okay, so we're looking at 8.3 and 8.4 for fire. Do you want separate motions to accept those, or?
They're all on one page, so I guess, I don't know, because they're separated on here,
You can do it all in one, the only thing that, just make sure that they're effective March 1st.
So it would be a motion to accept the roster changes as of March 1st. So moved.
Support? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Then ambulance roster changes, 8.5.
Yeah, so, Nurse Nikki, she has till the end of the year to get her required runs in. Her schedule and coaching the kids has changed a lot. She doesn't feel that she is actually going to be able to get those required number of runs in. So she would like to step away for now until the kids are learning a little bit more self-sufficient. She doesn't think it's fair to the ambulance because she's pretty sure she's just not going to be, the calls are random, and between the coaching and all the games and tournaments and all that, she simply doesn't think she can fulfill her obligation at this time. So she's asked her that for now.
Minimum.
The minimum, I'm not sure who started the minimum. I believe under Director Zoller, he raised it to 12. And under Director Tuco, he raised it to 18. And it hasn't changed since then.
Or it's 18 now. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
Well, the reason it was started and the reason that the former directors had to raise it was because the call volumes kept going up and there was fewer and fewer people able to take calls, and because it costs money to keep staff on, just in training and all that. So that's how that was started.
I remember that.
Yeah, and so because of that is how that became, and that's why it got raised up slowly over the years as the 911 calls kept going up. And
does that discourage people from being on the department?
well, it hasn't in the past discouraged anybody. It's just been a minimum requirement that was.
I think it's a good thing to have a minimum, but I'm just curious if you get it so high that you pretty soon you don't have anybody.
Right, and that's
then the ambulance service itself would suffer.
so right, and so there is definitely a balance there, and some of the changes in the future now that we also have paid on call staffing. Although the majority of their calls that they're the 911 calls they're doing are during the daytime hours when people are at work anyway. But the changes that need to be looked at is that there was a policy of if you signed up for 12 hours of making yourself available, being on call, there wasn't paid on call, that you got a run credit whether there was a run or not. I lowered that to 8 hours because 12 hours was kind of a big chunk, and then with more reliable staff ready to go, I didn't want it to make it so time demanding on people. But also with the quarters, we have the ability for people to, if they do not live within the required 10 minutes response time, because they moved, which some of the people that resigned got jobs other places. 3 of them moved out of the area, so they were not able to meet those minimum run requirements or have enough time to spend. So that is why I had reduced that time. So I don't know if 18 out of, we had 359 911 medical patients last year. I don't know that 18 is too much, but it certainly can be re-looked at. Maybe we can drop that number down, because again, the paid on call staffing is, but there are no paid on call staffing at this time on the weekend. There's nobody, it's all volunteer still. So if you haven't gone out of town or your kid's birthday or it's very volunteer, it's very tough. So it's certainly something we need to look for.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? Entertain a motion to accept the resignation of Nicole Carlson.
So moved.
Support?
I'll support it.
Aye. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And 8.6, who to appoint furnace and water heater?
At the end of the last season, the motherboard in the furnace took some water damage. The furnace is so old that in order to get just the part, he feels like they would cost more than $150. He thinks that's more than the furnace is worth. While we were looking at the furnace, the issue of the water heater that is also probably 1968 vintage. It's so large, it would have to be cut out of the building. It can't even be carried out. The only problem with the quote, I'd like to approve it and just, get you guys to say yes to it, but I said the only problem with it is that they don't have that funding in their budget right now. And nor do they have it in their savings with the project that they just completed. They agreed to lock up part of their savings, so they wouldn't be able to fund it. And that they haven't had enough years to build back any cushion at this point. So they could afford the furnace, and I think we need to go ahead with that, but as much as I will, unless you're going to take the water heater fund or reserve, general fund reserve,
How much do we have right now?
you have $48,600. You agreed to transfer $1,400 at the previous meeting for council education.
Is this in a situation where we should be doing bids, or is there?
I would go back and get another quote, if that's, if you wanna, and then, I guess I'm looking for some direction on the water heater before I go and get more. Do you want it for both, or just concentrate on the furnace?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to get both. If you're getting more bids, and I also recommend getting second bids.
Could we do 3 bids?
Is there a bidding policy on this kind of equipment?
Anything from $1,000 and 1 cent to $10,000, actually $25,000, it says 2 or more quotes shall be required. I'm glad to get another quote, I just want to make it see here.
One acre, what does that mean?
That'll be the tankless. It's on demand.
All the man, it's like all the man, that's the water, that's the heater.
Okay. So we table this until you get another second bid?
Yep, and I'm going with bids for all of the both.
Yeah.
Can we request 3 bids, please?
Okay. Is there a motion to table then?
I don't think we need to do that.
You guys know.
8.6 is tabled. Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting.
This doesn't require any action. The county sets this. Our board of equalization meeting is set for May 7th, from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I wanted to get that out to you guys early, get it scheduled now, and I guess I need to know if that's going to work for everybody, or if I need to go to the county and ask for a reschedule, sooner the better.
It'd be nice if they could do 5.
5 would be nice, but knowing ahead of time, I can make that.
You have to have, if I remember right, you have to have at least 4 on there.
You have to have a trained member, and that is
Well, you probably should have another, I remember back in the day, we had 2 trained members.
Highly make that recommendation.
I would go to that if they had it.
It's all online.
I make one together, and that online stuff's no fun, man.
It's an online.
So what have you-
And you watch it.
I would do that night, I know the process well anyway.
So that's a Tuesday.
If you would email me that online stuff,
Yep.
then I'll be a second member to that.
Yeah.
You get it too?
The online, yeah, long time.
I mean, it's something I would suggest every
Yeah,
council.
line's no fun, you got coffee,
Honestly, it's
donuts,
about an hour,
lunch.
2 hours of your time to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Linda, could you email that to me as well?
If they can do 5, that'd be good.
That'd be good.
Try and do that.
I can make it work. If they want 5, that's fine with me, but the 7th, Tuesday, the 7th would work.
So am I requesting 5? Is that the?
I'll try for 5 if at all possible.
You get a certificate after that, then?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Don't go over there.
Okay. Okay, so you don't need any action on that, that's, so, okay. 8.8 Civic Center stove and fridge upgrade.
The women's club would like to, hold on, just 1 second, I got to catch up on my glasses here. The women's club would like to purchase a new stove and refrigerator for the civic center. I think they're probably from the 40s, probably not.
No, it's probably from the 70s when they put it, they built that in the 70s.
Yeah, so I'm sure.
1978, I believe, so it's 40 years old, though.
Almost as old as me. And they severely need to be upgraded. I've given them a $2,000 threshold as long as you all approve that.
Well, and then they would put some of their own money into it. too.
Yeah, and they also secured some funds to get a trailer to haul them back with, and then they have a driver, and they're paying for the gas. They're going to someplace in the city where they feel they can get much better pricing.
I hope so, because I actually just got to look at those last weekend with the school dance that was there, and those all have to be NSF because it's a commercial kitchen.
Yep.
So usually when you have NSF involved, it's,
So that may be the other thing, they may only be able to get the stove this year.
Yeah, we just whatever they're looking for, make sure what, yeah, we just said that meets that.
when we replaced the stove at the school, that was like 68. But it was also a much bigger stove.
It was much
so-
bigger stove than what you do there. That stove, some days it works and some days it doesn't. And you never know which burners are gonna work. And you never know if the oven's gonna work.
And I do.
And it blows the breaker all the time.
Everything will work.
Are they,
No, you have to-
are they a 501(c)(3)?
Women's club?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay, because I know they had asked about the Relief Association, but they would have to be a 501.
You could donate it to the city. And we could pay for it, because it's ours anyway.
So, yeah, so a request needs to be then sent to the Relief Association.
Would that have to come from them then, or would it from
I
the
think it
city?
should.
Because it probably have to
In
come from.
conjunction with us, or something. It should
Yeah, but we can act as a non-501.
Just so it's not the city directly, I see.
I isn't Linda Hogan still the president of the women's club?
She's the queen of the civic center.
She's in it.
Yeah, she's all things civic center, so I don't know, just, she's one of the ones that will be working on the
Are
purchase.
you requesting action on that? or-
Yes, I am, because I am spending $2,000.
So a motion to approve up to $2,000 being spent for civic center equipment.
Support,
I'll support that.
discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Pine Street project wetland purchase, 8.9.
Yes. In your packet, you will see, first I'm going to put a little map that's in the packet. There are 9 sites, there are 8 sites that contain wetlands in those green circles there that have, there's some smaller ones, there isn't exactly 8 circles. But there are wetlands that are contained within those sites. In order to realign Pine Street, the Elver project that we just received grant funding for, in order to complete the Harbor Trail that we received LCCMR funding for, we would need to purchase wetland credits. Originally, back in 2018, if you go back a page, the council had also lumped into here a request to purchase some wetlands that would facilitate the harbor development. So therefore, the total cost would be about $39,500 at the time. now I need to get the 8 sites or the circled sites, which costs you $8,145.94 for wetlands. And I would need you to approve a motion to purchase those wetlands, or unless you want me to go back for the full amount, but then I need you to tell me where you're pulling the money out of as well.
Where does the money come from?
You're gonna have to take this out of reserves. So I caution you greatly in purchasing all of the wetlands, because you would be taking out 39.5, roughly, give or take some change for the wetlands, and you've already committed 1,400. And you're not even in March 1st, and you've spent 40 or 50 reserves. So as much as it looks like a good deal and the cost could be higher, if we purchase these wetland credits for the harbor later, we are not ready to go per se just yet. We are with these other projects are happening in 2019.
Plus there's the food equipment too, the furnace and all that.
Right, so yeah, so if I took all the money for the wetlands, I absolutely would not be able to help Clean Point out at all. And just the fact that you blew through them by March 1st would be very, very scary. Because then you're either gonna have to transfer from some fund at that point, or do a due from due to with a fund, but then you're borrowing from yourself, and that's a slippery slope, and I just don't recommend that. What you need right now today to accomplish the projects that we have, that we know to be shovel ready right now for 2019, you need to spend $1,000.
8145.94, okay. Is there a motion?
So moved, 8145.94.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 8.10 Sexual Assault Awareness Proclamation.
They always, for about the last 4 years, I believe it is, have asked the city of Towers to pass this mayoral proclamation proclaiming that sexual assault awareness month is April, I believe. April, yeah, so.
Okay. There's a motion on the second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I'm sorry, who supported that?
Okay, unanimous. Okay, number 9.
Yep, motion to adjourn.
The second. I imagine there's no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?